Hey everyone, FusedVR coming at ya, and hope this video finds you doing super well. Got a really exciting video lined up for you guys featuring our favorite item of 2019, Oculus Quest, and we'll be taking a look at how you can go about quickly prototyping for hand tracking. So at a high level, here are a couple things that we're going to be doing. One is some integration into VRTK using this SDK. Two is having an SDK that works for both the controllers that we have for the Quest as well as hand tracking and kind of seamlessly switching between the two. I think that's something that's going to be absolutely critical, and quite frankly, even the Oculus docs say that they're not accepting applications for any apps there that run with just hand tracking. You need to be able to support controllers and hand tracking, at least for the time being. Maybe that'll change into 2020. Who knows exactly when, but for now it's a fairly safe bet to say that you need to have apps that support both controllers as well as hand tracking. And three, of course, I talked a little bit about this, is I have a small Unity project up here that is a pretty small Unity SDK that plugs directly into VRTK and will allow you to do that seamless integration of both hand controller or hand tracking as well as controllers, and using the input very seamlessly so that everything is completely abstracted. You don't have to worry about that, and then you can leverage all the features from VRTK. So definitely a lot to cover here, but again, I want to iterate that the main goal of this video is to have a very easy, seamless way that we as a community can start learning how to develop for hand tracking, iterate on the design principles of that, and start experimenting, because I don't have all the answers. None of us individually have all the answers, but as a community, I think we can learn a lot from each other and build a lot of things. Now, one real quick thing, and this is more of a tip than anything else before we dive into my laptop here and go over this project, is I highly recommend investing just 20 bucks, really, that's what this cable is for, to get yourself an USB 3 to USB-C cable so that you can start using Oculus Link. And I should mention that Oculus Link does not work with hand tracking natively. You will have to continuously build basically Android APKs and send them to the device if you actually want to test anything that's hand tracking specific. However, because we're kind of in this theme of supporting both controllers as well as your hand tracking, in that case, Oculus Link actually becomes super useful so that you can avoid that build step and really seamlessly just hit play. Once you've connected Oculus Link, hit play and boom, you can start testing, which is honestly, I don't think enough developers are talking about it, because it's actually a really useful tool. Again, it's like 20 bucks. I'll leave an Amazon affiliate link if you want to support the channel to go buy it. Of course, you can also go ahead and buy the official Oculus Link cable, but I found this Amazon Basics one works really well. I haven't had any complaints about it. I mean, that's what I've used for most of my cables, and they don't seem to die, which is really all I ask for in a cable. So yeah, figured I'd mention that real quick at the beginning of the video. And with that said, let's go ahead, hop into my laptop here, and let's talk about hand tracking. Now, before we go ahead and dive into the code here, I wanted to go ahead and quickly highlight the Oculus documentation. And this is a little bit hidden, but I'll make sure to leave a link for this down below so that you can go ahead and check it out in your own time. But this is the docs on how they explain how they want you to go about using hand tracking. And really my only one gripe with this is that everything that they say here in this specific doc, they don't actually seem to roll over into their sample application, this train scene. You might have seen a video of that rolling around on YouTube, but yeah, they do it their own way, which not entirely sure what the recommended way is. For the purpose of this video, and probably the purpose of, I think, what Oculus is trying to make us do, we're going to stick to exactly what the documentation prescribes we do. If you want to go ahead and play around with the hand tracking side in the train scene, feel free to do so. Just know that it is not the intended way, at least not that I think that you're supposed to use this. So that's that. A couple things here I just wanted to highlight. Obviously, for hand tracking, the kind of core functionality you can see from these images is this pinch interaction. Yes, you get the finger tracking and positional tracking of your hands, but the core way, at least Oculus wants you to interact with hand tracking, is via pinches, which you can do across all 4 different fingers with your thumb. So one, in the setup side, you can read through this a little bit, but you'll see here that these are kind of the different modes that Oculus lets you prescribe to for choosing whether you want to support only controllers, hands and controllers, or hands only. And I want people to really pay attention to this, which is for hands only, it is purely solely for developer experimentation only. You can see that right here. And you're not allowed to submit. So if you ever want to submit for hand tracking, you're going to need to support controllers and hands, which is what this GitHub repo allows you to quickly and seamlessly integrate into VRTK with. And this is why I think it's so important to read the documentation. Otherwise, quite frankly, you miss a few gotchas like this, and then you spend so much time working on a hands-only app only to find out you can't submit it. It will kind of suck. So just wanted to highlight that very quickly. And the other thing here is, for the purposes of this video, we're just going to be going in and looking at specifically pinching, as I mentioned before, and kind of using these core functions here off of OVR hand, which is a script provided by Oculus to get whether or not a finger is pinching and get the confidence from that. There are some other things that Oculus provides specifically regarding this pointer pose, which allows you to kind of raycast into the scene. We're not going to be specifically looking at that. That's not integrated into this project. However, if you want to learn more about that, make sure to leave a like on this video and comment that down below, just so that I kind of get a feel for how many people are really interested in kind of deep diving into hand tracking specifically. But other than that, that's pretty much it as far as hand tracking goes. Let me go ahead and switch over here. This is the GitHub repo again, link in the description below. You can go ahead and just quickly clone this. So you can clone that right here or download the zip, whatever works for you. I've kind of written a quick blurb here, but we'll go through all of this in more detail, just as far as what assets there are, some setup, how to use that, all of that good stuff. But as we go throughout the video, I'll explain a lot more of this stuff specifically in detail. But for now, go ahead, make sure you have it cloned. I've already gone ahead and done so, and let's switch over to Unity. Now, when you open it up, it should look something very close to this. And well, actually, first thing we want to go ahead and do is go to your build settings, and you're most likely going to be in the platform-specific or generic version of PC and Mac. Go ahead, switch that to Android. It'll take a little bit of time, and I've actually gone ahead and done that already, but it's kind of necessary for deploying to Oculus Quest in the first place, so that's well worth doing, even if it takes a little while. Once you've gone ahead and switched over to Android, let me actually show you the reason why that's useful by switching over into our sample scene that I've gone ahead and put together. So if you go to Hands SDK, go to VRTK example, go to scene here, and go to climbing. Open that up. Once that opens here, you'll see kind of a pretty simple scene here, just a building that I've got off the asset store, nice little skybox here, and a few orbs. Quickly walk through what you can do here. All these orbs, you can go ahead and climb on them. You can actually see that they're climbable interactables provided to us by VRTK. We also have a teleporter that you can use to move around the scene a little bit more freely. And at a high level, that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to add, you can go ahead and do that pretty easily because this is, again, integrated into VRTK. As far as what does switching to Android let you see? So if you click here on the OVR VRTK camera rig, it's basically the OVR camera rig. I just renamed it just to differentiate it a little bit. But if you go here, if you go to your OVR manager, you'll see that you can now set the target device to Quest or the Gear VR Go. Of course, we're just dealing with Quest here because that's the only one that supports hand tracking. And I mentioned earlier in the docs, these different options here for controllers, and hands, and hands only. Again, you'll want to make sure that that's set to controllers and hands. The only other thing I would recommend just double checking if you're kind of building your own things from scratch is make sure you set the origin level to the floor instead of the eye level. That's just because the Quest has positional tracking. You'll want to go ahead and just make sure that you're aligned with the floor just so that people aren't clipping through floors and it looks awkward. But those are kind of the core things that you'll want to make sure. And again, these top two ones here are only going to show up if you are in Android build settings. That kind of threw me for a little trip when I was first starting out and trying to figure out how to get things working. So that explained, why don't we go ahead and let me just walk through how this works with Oculus Link. And I'll probably put it side by side with the headset just to get a feel for what the sample scene feels like. All right, so here we are with Oculus Link here. And you can see my controllers and all of that's running good in Unity. The advantage again here is we can quickly and easily test with controllers while, again, having that work perfectly with hand tracking. And that's kind of the beauty of this. So you can see here, if I press the grips, if we press the trigger, we can go ahead and pull ourselves around here and just quickly and easily kind of swing through. You might notice this little fading here. That's in part because of having VRTK with the facade set up so that we don't kind of clip through things and it looks awkward. And we also have, on this scene, we have a nice little grip button. If we press that, you'll see VRTK's pointer here. And we actually didn't need to do a lot to set this up, but we can go ahead, teleport around here, all that good stuff. If we want, go ahead, take a look outside. Kind of the standard interactions that you might have with VR. And again, this is a GitHub repo that works with hand controllers and with controllers. Oculus Link just allows us a very quick and easy way to test everything in Unity without having to deploy every single time. Okay, so that was Oculus Link in very quick and simple, easy terms there. Now, let me go ahead and kind of quickly walk through how you might go about using the SDK to quickly integrate with VRTK. So you'll see that we have our pointer here, and this is what allows us to have that nice arc that we see that allows us to go ahead and teleport. And let's say we want to also have it on the right hand. Let's just very simply, just for the purposes of just walking through and showing how a pointer works, we can go ahead and do that. So first things first, let's go ahead and find it. You'll need to search in packages because that's where VRTK is located. And we'll just go ahead and drag out a curved pointer here. Now, to differentiate that from the previous one that we had, we'll just go ahead and label this as right, just so that we know that it is off of the right controller. And there are a few sources that we have that we'll need to actually go ahead and update. So if we take a look here at the previous one, which is for the left controller, you'll see that we have a follow source that's associated with the left controller alias, which comes with VRTK. We have activation, we have a selection action, and we have how we want to select. Now, since we're just dealing with the teleport, we're actually going to ignore the selection part. If you want to hook that up into a teleporter, you totally can do that. I'm just, for the sake of simplicity, just going to be focused on activation. So we have our right pointer here. We'll just need to go ahead, associate that with the right controller. So let's go ahead, drag that onto the follow source here. And as I mentioned, we also need to set up an activation. Now, we want this to be activated off of the right grip button. And we'll see here I have kind of a small game object for VRTK inputs. This is only using the inputs that we currently have provided. So I have left and right hand triggers, so that's what's used for climbing. And we have a left grip button. So as you might imagine, we need to go ahead and duplicate this left grip button here. And we'll call it the right grip button. Okay, so we have a right grip button. And you can then go, quite frankly, it's very simple here. We have two fields that we can go ahead and set. So we just quickly and easily just need to set that to the right hand. And now we have a right grip button that we can then go ahead and just drag that onto our activation here. So what this says is when we press the right grip button, we will then be able to go ahead and activate our pointer. So that's pretty much all we need to do. That's kind of the beauty of VRTK pulling a lot of the weight here to go ahead and set that up. Now, obviously, I went ahead and did a Control-D to duplicate this here. If you are doing this in your own scene and you may not have any of these things set up, you can go ahead down into the Hand SDK, go to Prefabs, and we'll have all the prefabs that you need here. So specifically, you'll be looking for a VRTK button. Just go ahead, drag that into the scene here, and boom, you're done. And again, has all the same things that you'll need, and then you can just go ahead and drag that onto any VRTK object that you want. But this is just another different way since we already happen to have the left grip button here. So I've talked a little bit about how you can easily use the SDK to get things working with controllers and hands, but how does this actually kind of work fundamentally? So at the highest level, the way this works is we've basically found a mapping such that you can map the controller buttons, which are specifically your triggers, your grip, and your X and Y button or A and B button, to pinches that you can activate with your hands. And you can see the specific mapping that I have here. At its core, fundamentally, all we're saying is the trigger button, we're gonna map it to the index finger. Grip to middle, A and B buttons respectively to the ring and pinky finger. And that's pretty much it. Yes, there are a couple buttons that we're missing, but honestly, you can go ahead and add those as part of the framework. I just kind of wanted to get the fundamentals of just kind of 4 core button inputs that you can start interacting with that make it very seamless and very easy to swap between using controllers and hand tracking. Now, how does this map into how we actually use it? Let's say you're building your own sample scene. So if we go to create a new scene here, how would you get started? So first, 2 things that you're going to want to go ahead and do: drag in this OVR VRTK camera rig. Now, this is going to be using whatever the current version of Oculus's OVR camera rig here is. You might need to specifically update it if you ever update Oculus here. Just want to make a note of that. But whatever you get with the package is what it's going to be working with. On top of that, we'll go back to our prefabs here. You only need to go ahead and drag in an input manager. Now, for this input manager, we're going to go ahead and need to set up a few things. So for starters here, we need to set up what are the controllers. So if we go here to our hand anchors, and then we go to our hand prefabs here. So these are going to be the ones that we're going to be using. And again, you can honestly, if you just go to your climbing example scene here, you'll be able to just verify and make sure that everything works. That's one of the reasons why I'm providing it. So you can very easily see everything that's set up here, as well as this linked alias, which is important. And you can also see exactly what is required for setting up. So if we click on each and every one of these, so you can see here, the linked alias is on the camera rig. What are the prefabs we're using? For those are the touch controller prefabs, and these are the left and right hand prefabs. So if we go back to our new scene, I'll show you how you can easily set that up. So again, drag both of these guys in. We'll go to our input manager here. We'll open up our camera rig. And once we do that for both the left and right hand, we can then go ahead and just drag in all our prefabs. So left hand here to... So this is what it should look like. So again, boom, boom for the controllers, and boom, boom for the hands, as well as our linked alias. And we can go ahead, double check that everything's set up correctly for the linked alias, which it is right there. And once you have that, now these buttons and axes will just go ahead and hook into that. So let's say we want to set up a button. So we'll just go ahead, drag in a VRTK button here. We can choose what this button is going to be, whether it's the triggers, grips, you name it. And then we can just quickly and easily hook that into VRTK. So for that, we'll just need to track alias. So we can drag that into our scene here. We'll also need to hook this up real quick. And so now our tracked alias is set up. We now have a button that we can use, and we have our camera rig. So we'll actually just need to go ahead and delete this. And you now have a scene that is integrated with hand tracking and controllers. So very easy and simple to set up. I just wanted to quickly show how that would work if you're building your own scene. And now you can hook it up with teleportation, with grabbing things, climbing, you name it, whatever VRTK provides to you, whatever you extend from VRTK, you can now leverage. And quite frankly, VRTK is the one that is doing most of the work here. Honestly, the only thing I'm really adding is a quick and easy way to hook in with both hand tracking as well as with controllers. And honestly, yeah, that pretty much does it as far as setup goes and what you would really need to know to leverage this. If you are interested in looking at any of the scripts, I've spent the time to go ahead and document all of them. I'll show a couple screenshots here. Kind of the core, as you might have guessed, is the input manager, which is basically the core functionality that swaps between the touch controllers and hand controllers. We have an abstraction layer here with the input control that allows us to basically make it so that both hand tracking as well as touch controllers use the same inputs, and that's kind of generalized so that the input manager doesn't have to actually write in any hand or controller specific code. And on top of that, we have again, the sample Unity assets that are provided, as well as a couple scripts here. I've gone ahead and provided a generic velocity estimator because of, at least at the current time of recording, Oculus is not providing velocity estimates. And quite frankly, all this does really is just velocity so that we can get climbing. We're not even doing angular velocity. There might be something I add in the future, as well as the buttons that I've mentioned. So that's pretty much it. So it's just kind of the core functionality exists in really 6 core scripts. And if you want to take a look at them at any time, they're all open source, and I tried to comment them as much as possible. If you have any questions about those, make sure to leave a comment below so that either myself or someone in the community can go ahead and help you out there. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly explain that all here. We've gone through how you can set things up, how you can extend the example scene here to leverage VRTK, as well as how you can use Oculus Link to go ahead and quickly and easily start testing your applications without even needing to keep deploying each and every time, which is honestly, any way that you can mitigate that step is always a nice advantage. So I think that wraps it up for the video. Real quick before we go, I want to say huge thanks to VRTK because quite frankly, as I've mentioned multiple times in this video, most of the heavy lifting happens because of VRTK, and that's what's going to allow you to quickly and easily start prototyping here. And if you haven't done so already, I would highly recommend supporting those guys out on Patreon. What that enables you to do is go ahead and support more documentation, more tutorials that get put out, not just by kind of free people that are doing it like myself out there on the internet, but also kind of from the official source so that everyone has a chance to start learning, experimenting with VRTK, which I think will be so valuable to help VR grow and keep growing. On top of that, if you're feeling even more generous, make sure to leave a like on this video if you found it helpful, and I'd love to hear from you anything you are working on with regards to hand tracking, what you want to see maybe from this SDK or from the channel in the future. All of those, love talking with you guys down in the comments below. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up this video. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. This has been FusedMan, and I'm signing out.